Look, you can do some pretty complicated things with the new redstone crafter, but let's be absolutely real here. For 95% of us, we're going to be doing one thing and one thing only with the crafter, and that is compacting. Howdy folks, my name is Speaker4 and welcome to a tutorial for creating two different types of automatic crafter compactors, one of which is one wide and tileable, the other of which is cheaper yet takes up slightly more space. So what do I mean by compactor? Well, with a lot of single item recipes, if you put 9 or 4 of them into a crafting grid, it'll spit out a block of the type, in this case 9 iron ingots into a block of iron. If you power the crafter, then you get out, well, the block of iron. This works with a bunch of different single ingredient crafting recipes, everything from iron, diamond, and gold, to kelp, to amethyst, and a whole bunch of other things that are really useful. I think this is going to be the most common type of automatic crafter used in just everyone's everyday world. So let's see how to build it. Now there's two different types here, one of which is cheap and non-tileable. As you can see, the most expensive thing in this is the crafter itself, and of course the comparators, which you need quartz for. The other of which is expensive, seeing as it has 2 observers and a couple of comparators, but it is one wide and tileable, meaning you can put a bunch of them all next to each other. The neat thing about these is you can even tie them into an item sorter, meaning if you want to craft something like, let's say, iron blocks, if you have something like poppies coming in from an iron farm, they're not going to end up in the crafter. As you can see, they come straight out to the end. Pretty cool, right? This is how the non-tileable one works. Items go into the crafter, and once it detects that it fills up all 8 slots, it spits out iron blocks. It works this way by comparing the signal from this full composter, which gives out a strength of 8, and the signal from this full crafter, which gives out a strength of 9. The comparison and signal activates this redstone dust, which activates this repeater set to 3 ticks, and the crafter itself, spitting out a block. If we didn't have the repeater set to 3 ticks, it would spit out iron nuggets, but it doesn't, so it's cool. This design came from a Mumbo Jumbo video on kelp crafters, and it's pretty simple and useful, especially if you're only putting a single compactor in a farm. However, if you want it tileable and one wide, you need to get a little bit more complicated. In this case, we're still taking the comparator signal from the redstone crafter. Instead of being compared from the side, it's compared by the front. This composter once again sticks out a signal strength of 8, so once this goes to 9, this observer detects it, this observer detects that observer, and then the repeater transfers the signal to the crafter. This has to be set at 4 ticks because the observer gives off 2 pulses instead of 1, and if we let it give out 2 pulses, it would craft up single item crafting, which isn't an issue for diamonds, but for things like iron, it can turn into a bunch of iron nuggets. Oh, by the way, this one, it originally came from a Reddit post that had a very similar design minus the composter, but I think this specific design came from a Silent Whisperer video. Now, the neat thing about this is you don't actually have to use a composter, you just need something that gives out a signal strength of 8. In this case, I'm using a crafter with every slot filled except for 1, but you can also use things like a semi-full chest, a lectern with a book on it, or even something like armor stands on a pressure plate. Now these are really neat too, because as you can see, this one fills up all the way with kelp, this one fills up all the way with gold nuggets, but this one only fills up with 4 amethyst shards, yet when I activate them all, they still spit out the items. That is because each one of these filled in blocks counts as a filled slot. So even though we're only putting 4 items in here, it's still reading as 8. Pretty handy, actually. That actually means that we could use this as a single item crafter. If you were putting something like iron blocks, it would spit out iron ingots. However, it's really slow because of the necessary repeater set to 4 ticks here, which means that something like this would go a lot quicker. Here I have a bunch of iron blocks and a crafter filled up, and if I just do a simple observer clock, it spits out a ton of broken down iron. But you can see why something like a compactor is incredibly useful. While some things like the amethyst won't break down, things like iron blocks, gold blocks, and gold ingots from a gold farm can be stored much more compactly. Where a normal chest can hold about 1,700 items if they're stacked up all the way, the same chest with compacted items, I should turn this off. I'm gonna lag on my world here. The same chest with compacted items can hold nearly 15,000 items, and I'm sure you can see how that would be useful. So now that we've understood why this is probably the only auto crafter you'll ever need, and I should turn these off as well. By the way, this is just a simple Impulse SV overflow safe item crafter. I have so many iron ingots, holy crap. You can put any type of item sorter here, and it works. It comes out pretty well. So let's talk about how to build these. We'll start with the non-tileable one first, just because it's a little cheaper and something you're going to use if you only need one type of condenser. So here's the ingredients for the non-tileable auto-compactor. You need 1 composter, 2 comparators, 1 repeater, 2 redstone dust, a crafter, obviously, because this is a crafter recipe, a hopper to lead into the crafter, a bunch of some sort of organic material. In this case, I'm using wheat seeds, but you could even do something like flower petals, and then 8 building blocks. So here's how you build it. You're going to place down a single block with your crafter on top, pointing in the direction you want. The crafters can either export into space, like these over here, or export into an inventory, like these over here. You're going to place the composter down next to the first block you placed. Fill it most of the way with your seeds. When it gets to this level, it's going to turn white. If you click it again, it will clear its inventory and give you a bone meal. So make sure you don't click it again with organic material. Place a comparator going out the side. Place 2 blocks here. Place 2 blocks behind the comparator. Place 1 block behind the crafter and another block behind it with a space in between. You're going to place your second comparator out here to get a signal from the crafter. You can do this with a block in between, and this block has to be here because we're putting a repeater set to 3 ticks underneath it. This is what powers the block underneath the crafter and powers the crafter. Then we're simply going to place 1 piece of redstone dust here, 1 piece of redstone dust under this block, and the hopper on top of the crafter. Now when I fill this with something like iron ingots, you'll see that it fills up the crafter till we get a fully powered crafter and spits out a block. You can do this into an item stream, into a hopper line, or simply into a chest, whatever works best for your unique situation. Now, if you want to speed this up a little bit, you can place more hoppers leading into the crafter. And as you can see, it's spitting out iron blocks a lot quicker because it's filling up a lot quicker. Now, you might be worried that this will break itself when it runs out of materials, but that's not the case. As soon as your farm sticks in more iron, it will shoot out the correct items. Now, if for some reason your crafter fills up and you end up with a situation where you're just full of items and it's not shooting anything out, the best way to fix this is to simply clear out the inventory. Once you do that and it refills, it should activate again. So if you notice you're not getting any blocks out, that's what you need to do. So yeah, it's a pretty simple design. It is only a 2x4 design, although I guess it's technically a 3x4 if you're counting the blocks underneath, such as if you're building this in the air, but it's a nice little compact thing. And if you want, because this came from a Mumbo Jumbo video on kelp, you can do something really cool with this. Place a crafter here and a crafter facing downwards. That was not downwards. And if you put something like kelp in here, sorry. I think I've been saying it's a Mumbo Jumbo kelp video the entire time. It's definitely a Mumbo Jumbo bamboo video. But yeah, if you place something like bamboo in here, with the unique way this block is powered, it'll export blocks of bamboo into here, and when this crafter powers this crafter, it'll spit out planks of bamboo, which can be pretty useful. So if you have any multi-stage crafting recipes, this is the one to use for you. That being said, let's move on to the one wide tileable. For this, you're going to need 4 building blocks, 1 redstone repeater, 2 redstone comparators, either a crafter or a composter, some organic material if you're using a composter, a single piece of redstone dust, 2 observers, a crafter, and a hopper. Now this one, even though it is tileable, is a little bit more expensive, which is why you might build something like this early on in your world. Now, here's how to build it. Place down a block with your crafter on top of it, facing whatever direction you want it to. Behind your crafter, place another block. Place your repeater facing into the block under your crafter, set to 4 ticks. Then place your one of your observers outputting into the repeater. and then your other observer facing directly upwards. You might have to finagle it down a little bit to get this. You want that face facing upwards. Then you're simply going to place another building block on the other side of your observer, one of your repeaters on that block, your composter leading into your repeater like that. Make sure it's on the same level. If your composter is on this level, it will not work. Fill up your composter to level 8, place another comparator outputting from the crafter, and place a single piece of redstone dust on top of your observer. Now when you place compactable blocks into your hopper line, you're going to get out blocks of whatever you have. Now the way this one works is very similar to this one, except it's all in a straight line. The comparator takes a readout from the crafter through this block and powers this to level 9 when every single slot is filled up. This comparator coming from the composter is powered to level 8, and this observer detects a change in the power of this redstone line. As you can see, it goes from 8 to 9 there. When the crafter fills up, which sends an output through this observer, which this observer detects and sends through this repeater, and this repeater is set at a long enough tick that the double pulse from the observer doesn't trigger the crafter twice, making this a really neat system that is really useful for a lot of just non-technical Minecraft players. Of course, there's ways you can craft things like dispensers and pistons and even cake with the crafters, but these two machines are probably going to be the two you're using most in your world. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's been informative to you, and be sure to let me know what uses you want to use your crafter for in your work in the comments. I've been Speaker 4. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy this one right here. Special thanks to all my channel members who make videos like this possible. If you want to help support the channel, you can like, subscribe, or become a channel member. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and I will catch you on the flip side. Later. By the way, did you like my crafter throne?